Hello, today I'm going to do a quick video and it's inspired by last Friday's live stream on PBK, and Joseph said something interesting that just kind of lingered, and he mentioned something about I think it had to do with coding and algorithms and how they train some type of neural network. I forgot the specifics, but anyways, what stuck and what was I kept pondering about throughout the week is this duality. And between opposites and how they use that to train the algorithm, but they are actually based on human behavior, and that's why that's why it caught my interest, and I just kind of kept pondering on that here and there, but it lingered. So I wanted to do a quick video. So these dichotomies, so the reactive, right? And how often have we, it seems like we all react, that's without judgment, right? So we haven't stated whether that's a good type of reaction, a bad reaction, but usually when we react is because we actually care about the conversation, the person, the idea, the business, right? So it matters. And what, in my opinion, what kind of throws things for a loop is that when we care about something, there's emotions involved, and that's when things get tricky, because that's when we end up saying something that we don't mean. When emotions are high, usually we say something that we don't mean when we're angry, as an example. So, and many a times, I guess, that's one of the things that we always have to keep in mind. And usually when the more important, the more at stake, the higher our emotions are going to be. And that's when it gets really tricky, because that's when you really need your sense of reason and logic and perception and all that. You need them to be top shape, I guess, but that's when they go out the back window, because emotions are so powerful that they take over. And so the trick is, okay, so how do we deal with this? Well, so the dichotomy, the duality of these, say, so reactive, right? We just do it. And the opposite of that aspect is the reflective. Well, I guess it's not really its opposite, but it's kind of what you do after the fact. Past behaviors, past conversations, past reactions, for good or bad. What worked, what didn't work, why did it work, why didn't it work? And when it comes to, like I said, emotions are powerful. So how do we navigate important conversations, like when we're communicating with the people that we care about most, and not let anger get the best of us? Now that's easier said than done, I suppose, but there's got to be a way. So that's when the reflective takes place, and you kind of have to do your homework ahead of time. And so then the other aspect is exploitation versus exploration. So exploitation just pretty much means, so in the human behaviors, you utilize what you have, right? We use what we have on hand, right there and then. So if you're camping, you're not going to have gadgets that you're used to, or you're not going to pack the whole house, right? You're not going to pack the garage, so you're going to be limited, because when you're there, you just use what you have. And I'm going to go on a little side trail here, a rabbit trail. That's where I think the notion of gratitude comes in, is when we take stock of all the things that we have, right? All the things that we have, because we can get, I guess, so from a negative perspective, from a harmful perspective, is when we start yearning for all the things that we don't have. And I wish I could have this, or we even get angry, upset, or envious, or disappointed, or depressed because we don't have all the things that are out there, or a million and one things out there that we don't have, and we lose sight of all the things that we have going. So putting that thing in perspective as far as utilizing what we have. So the concept of exploitation, using what you already have. Now, when it comes to conversations, when emotions are powerful and you don't want to resort to the same old where you just let your anger talk for you instead of your reason or logic talk for you, that's when you have to do something ahead of time. That's where you have to, this whole thing about coping skills, any skill requires exercise. So I'm going to use the metaphor. If you are going to do a piano recital, and let's say your piano instructor says, well, the recital is not for a month, that gives you a cue how much time you have on your free time to study the piece, right? If you take it seriously, you're going to spend your time until you feel you're prepared enough to do it in front of people at the recital. So, and that is so you're going to practice that skill, right, for the piano recital. And anxiety aside, because I know there's such thing as stage fright. There's ways to cope with that, but that's a different story for another day. But anyways, yeah, a coping skill, I guess you can see that as playing a piano, and you have to practice ahead of time. So if you don't practice at all, at the day of the recital, it's probably not going to go as desired, I'm assuming. And it's a big assumption, right? So the more we practice, the easier, in theory, it gets, right? The less mistakes we make, and the less mistakes we make, the less anxious we make, the less anxious we get, because the more mistakes you make, the more anxious and nervous you get, etc., etc. It's a downward spiral. So, but again, exploitation, the things that you have, reactive versus reflective. So when it comes to the reflective, it helps you figure out what you need to do for the next time. Every day's a new day. We get a new do-over. Most of the time, our partners, right, our wife, our spouse, I should say, they will forgive us, and we get to try it again. So I've been in a relationship for many years, and yes, we do get to try it again, and we hope that the next time it'll go better. And so that's the hope, and that's the mutual. Most of the time, in general, that's the mutual feelings behind that, right? You want to get better at the relationship, not worse at the relationship. I know often, and I know the statistics in divorce, but that's another conversation for another day. So, reflective versus reactive, exploitation versus exploration, and practicing ahead of time so you can react better because you reflected more, and then you started practicing so that you utilize what you already have, and the better your skill, the more you have, in theory, right? So the more you practice those difficult conversations, and I'm going to pause here for mention the most cheesiest thing that you often hear, and it's not until you actually use it and that you see that it works, that then it's not so cheesy, but it is cheesy, but cheesy at least helps you remember. So here's the most cheesiest thing you hear. When you're having a conversation, you start to get a little angry, count to 10, count to 5, count to 3 Mississippi, whatever it is. The why behind that is it gives you a buffer to make room for logic and reason, because emotions are getting ready to overpower you. And so when you practice enough, you're like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, in your head, obviously, 2 Mississippi. And then that little buffer of time is to give enough time as you've been practicing your skills to have something else populate in your head. And what are the things that you might swap out for that angry, or those things you're about to say, the things that you want to say, and it's probably not PG-13 or that kind of thing, right? Been there one too many times to know what's coming next. So you stop. And so I'm going to, again, to compare emotions versus something, right? Anger versus this, sadness versus this. even extreme happiness, you also have to take stock of that, because too much optimism, too much pessimism. So emotions over values, right? When you count to 3, count to 5, count to 10, when you're going to be practicing, so you're going to have these terms, even if it's one word, the value that you want to uphold instead of diminish, or relationship, right? My love, my wife, my kid, my boss, my whatever relationship you want to salvage. When you're having an interesting conversation, or even a difficult conversation, and you're starting to go there, you've been there too many times, you know it, you take pause, and then you make room for that, the opposite of those upsetting emotions that usually has some kind of value tied to it, relating to relationships, something important, worthwhile, that you want to keep, that you've been nurturing, your relationship, you want to keep it. You're not going to let anger overthrow that, right? But you need practice, you need skill, and you also need to reflect to understand this happens all the time. We need a new strategy, we need a new way to cope with our feelings, anger, all that kind of good stuff. So reactive versus reflective, exploration versus exploitation, amplifying versus minimizing. That can also get us in trouble when we amplify, making a big deal over some nonsense notion, over something that doesn't matter. Making a storm out of a cup of water, right? Is that a hill I want to die on? No. Do I want to salvage the relationship? Yes. Do I want to salvage my job? Yes. Do I want to salvage my reputation? Yes. Is this a value is this a Christian value I want to keep and uphold? So do I want to represent Christ properly? You name it. Fill in that blank. Something that you want to keep. And you're not going to let emotions get the best of you. Not this time, right? Not this time, not this time. We say it so many times. Not this time, not this time. Today's a day. Every day's a brand new day. Every day we get a brand new sunshine, not brand new day, right? 365 days in a year. Last year is gone. It's almost 2025. Every day of the year, every day we begin anew. We're a new creation in Christ for you Christians out there. So, the proper perspective, the proper framing, and as far as amplifying and minimizing, so that thing that your wife is upset at you, that you keep doing over and over, which you seem to think is a small thing, is it really a small thing? Because it's sure causing a lot of emotional problems in a relationship. Maybe we need to recalibrate our perception, having their point of view in mind when we're calibrating the level of importance, and if it's really that important to them, it should also be important to us, that we align the same set of standards, that we maintain the what's the word? When you come into agreement, yes, that you, on the set boundaries that you have agreed, the set goals that you agreed upon, the set values, the same, whatever it is, right? Often there's some things that neither party wants to do. I'll give you a quick example. Chores. There's 10 chores that need to be done every single week as a metaphor, and we're going to try to make a judgment as far as it's how long it's going to take, and it's like how nasty it's going to be to do, say, the toilets, that kind of thing, right? So, and we're going to delegate it, and it's going to be even and fair as a metaphor. So it's going to be 5 and 5. All right, these 10 chores that we have to do every single week, we come to an agreement ahead of time that, okay, these five are for you, these 5 are for me. Those are set, agreed upon ahead of time, and week after week something goes wrong. someone doesn't follow through, someone doesn't keep the end of the bargain, that kind of thing. So those are the kind of things that all those things were, my wheels were turning when I heard that concept from Yozef, maybe I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Reflective versus reactive, exploration versus exploitation, that kind of concept of, and again, this is behavioral patterns that we all have, for good or bad, and we can create new, healthier habits. We have to first take stock and understand where are we failing, right? What is it? What do I need to fix? What do I need to? So a new strategy, new coping skill, new planning, new framing, fill in the blank. So I did say it was going to be a quick video, and so I get a feeling that I'm starting to ramble. So, but yes, proper framing, because emotions are powerful, and we can't see that's the rub. We cannot get rid of our emotions, just like we can't get rid of anxiety. It's wired in. It's just part of the human experience. We can't get rid of it, but we got to control it instead of it controlling us. And sometimes we need to practice the piano before the recital. So when it's showtime, it really is showtime. And we are like, oh, that went well, right? Hopefully, for you, it goes better than expected. Both parties are happy and all is well, day after day, month after month, year after year. And I'm a parent, and I know that's a little bit, dealing with kids is a whole new different ballgame, right? And I think that's the irony of life, right? Just when you get your act together, and just when you begin to, things are going, they're aligning well, here comes kids. And then the terrible twos happen. And then your other kid comes. And then just when you're over the terrible twos, and you're like, oh, wow, that's better, here comes the other terrible twos again. And the teenage years, right? And the cycle begins, and they have no concept of a well-oiled version of theory of mind, and of the concept of value based on life experience. Everything's, the one awesome thing about kids is that when you start daydreaming, as a kid, everything is possible, and the sky's the limit, and so optimistic by and large. And you're like, yeah. But then again, when you're getting to a teenager, you're more skeptical, but you still think that you know it all. And all those advice that your parents are trying to give, you're like, yeah, you just don't want me to have fun. So, yeah, that's the rub. That when you begin to have things worked out, by and large, here comes kids, the terrible twos, right? Times 2, times 3, depending on how big your family is. And then here comes the teenage years, right? Anyways. All right. Not many people leave comments. Then again, not that many people subscribe. New channel, or at least new me to the posting world, I suppose. But it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. But anyways, all right. That's it for me. So Alex Luna 4, the handle is de sol a sol. Yeah. So if you're bold enough to leave a comment or to give it a like, yeah. Anyways, it's completely optional. It's all right. It's okay. It is what it is. I come to terms, but I'm doing my portion, and the rest, well, it's out of my control. There you are. All right. Till next time. Yeah. Let's see. Where do we? Oh, yeah. There we go. This button instead. There we go. All right. Till next time.